I'd like to welcome you out to another Access tutorial. This time what I'd like to do is talk about a little bit more advanced topics in SQL, or structured query language, that language that actually does the work behind the scenes when we set up a query in the query by example grid. So let me pull up Access here. I've got this staged ready to go. What I want to do is I want to look and show a few wildcards that you can use. I'm going to start by making a query on account managers, and I'm going to let the QBE grid help me a little bit there. And I want, in this case, the full name, first name, and last name. Now let's use some wildcards. Now here I'm going to let the like command help me. I'm going to say I want all account managers whose names begin with A. So I'm going to go A and then star, the capital 8. On the numpad, it's the star key above the 9. So A star and tab out of it. And what it'll do is it'll put the keyword like in front of it. So it's like and then quotes around it, the double quotes around it, A star. And if I run that and show the data, there's one person in there whose name starts with A, her last name is, or Giovanni, last name is Ashworth. Okay. And if I looked at the SQL view here, there's a little bit in this where clause, a little bit of parenthesis work going on here. The last name is in brackets because it has a space in it, and dim account managers is in parentheses, like a colon, and the entire thing then ends up in parentheses here. The like a star ends up here. Let's say instead that I want to find people whose name were Hansen, but I know that Hansen is spelled two different ways. So how do I deal with that? Well, let's put an H-A-N and then S, and Hansen can be spelled H-A-N-S-E-N or O-N. And with the two spelled E-N or O-N, let's put a question mark there. Now the question mark deals with a single character. A pound sign is used for a single number. So you've got question mark and you've got pound sign to deal with those single character instances where you don't quite know what the letter or number might be. And so if we run that one, we get Hansen and Hansen in the database, just to make sure that works. Now, brackets allow you to send several characters, a single character or several characters, in an array, in a string of characters. So if I was looking for H-A-N, for example, I could put bracket H-A-N, and I'd put the like keyword in front of it. And then I could also say, I don't want any people that begin with the last name H-A-N. So I can put open bracket, quotation mark, and then S-H-A-N, and then close bracket to tell it that I don't want anything beginning with H-A-N in it. So various different ways to use wildcards in that instance. Okay, now what I want to do is show another command that's particularly useful. I want to go down here to my dim territory table, and the dim territory table has 56 records. And what I want to do is I want to parse off pieces of this. Okay, I'm going to say I'm going to use the distinct command to create a query and territory. And I want to look at regions, okay? And I want to go to the SQL view here, and I want to select distinct regions, okay? So when I run it, I get only 8 records, okay? Now getting only 8 records means that the records are only going to give me one instance of each region in the table. Now there were 56 different records in the table, and I'm finding 6 different regions. Okay, 8 different regions. Now let's go back to design view. Let's say now I want to see what the markets are for each of those regions. Now I've added 2 records that are, as we go back to SQL view, distinct for both of those records. Now what happens? If I have records that, for example, for the Midwest, now I have 3 different markets in the Midwest. So I don't have just my 8 records anymore. I now have 18 records, okay? They now have expanded because there are more markets per region. And then going beyond that, just to prove the point here, if I go ahead and add the state to it, so now I have the region and the markets in the region, and now the states that comprise those markets, I can go ahead then and read that, and I actually get all 56 records. So all the states, including the provinces of Canada up here, are included in various different markets and regions. But we see the region over here in alphabetical order, and then their markets that go with them, and then their state. Okay? So that's what select distinct does. Now, let me go backwards. Let's go ahead and take both of these off. And now we run this and we get those 8. But a variation of that particular command is distinct row. So now, if I put distinct row in there, I'm only choosing the region field, but now it's going to look at the entire row and give me all of the rows that have distinct records in them. And what you'll find is when I run this, I'll get 56. Because when I had all the fields in select distinct in there, it gave me distinct for the whole row because the whole row was in there. And now you see the distinct row, even though I choose only one of the fields, gives me just those particular records. Okay. So select distinct and distinct row. They have, of course, each of their purposes. So let's say I want to make a column alias here. Column aliases, we've shown you how to do it here. If we show you how to do it in SQL view, I want to take the region and I want to alias, and I want to call the region the territory. So I'm going to alias the region as territory instead, okay? And if I run that, now I've got a field called territory. So in the query by example grid, it's the name of the alias with a colon after it. In the SQL view, it's as territory, okay? So that's the column alias, okay? Now, let's go ahead and sort this. I want to actually go to make another query. I'm going to close that. No, don't save it. And I'm going to go here, and I want the customers table, and I want the transactions table, okay? Because this makes a really neat thing. If I put customer name in here, and I decided I want to know the order date and the line total, okay? So here, what I'm going to do is go ahead and put that information in there. And if I just run it, it just comes with a miscellaneous bits of data, all the line totals for all the orders that they made during those years. It doesn't really give me a whole lot of information. It gives me a lot of data, but not information. So let's go ahead and do some little bit of work here. So what I want to do is I want to put the totals query on. And if I sum this, we look at the SQL and see how it's changed. Now we've got the group by down here, and up here in the field select comment, we have both the sum function and the as to alias that particular field going on up here in your select line. Okay, so we got select from, and we've got it grouping by. We don't have anything ordered by yet, but we could have that. In fact, we will a little bit later. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to sum these down to a year. So let's go back to this design view and see that's what we have there. Go back to the design view, and I want to use a function called year. And open paren, close paren, and it wants me to put in an alias here because it doesn't know what to do with what I'm changing about the order line item, order dates, okay? And I'm going to say yearly total. And it's going to be a yearly total by customer, okay? So if I run that, I get 2013, this company ordered $194. And in 2014, I ordered 59. Not a very profitable customer there. I wonder if we even have any profitable customers in here. But we'll check that out. we'll check that out and see what happened. Then we can go ahead and do this even further. Here we've done this work here. So let's go ahead and save this. And I'm going to close this. And so if I put this on all access objects, I see I've got a query 1 here. Remember, that's our query totaling that stuff. Okay. Actually, query 2 is the one we want. Yeah, query 2 is the one we want. Okay, so here's query 2. What happens if I need to have the data doubled? If I need to have the data queried a second time? I can actually embed a query inside of a query. And so let me go ahead and create one, query design. Notice there's a tab here for queries as well. I'm going to go ahead and slip query 2 in here. And if I drop all of those in here, I can now go ahead and total this. And I'm going to group by the years. And I'm going to sum the line totals, the sum of sums. Actually, I don't want to even group it by the year. I'm going to take this out completely. And I can go ahead and let that other one do the work. And if I do this and go sort descending, there we go. Now, let's look at the SQL. See what the SQL has done. Okay, so I'm going to select the field names from query 2, from query 2, and group by query 2 customer name. Okay, treats it just like it's another table. And now if you really want to know what's going on, what you end up having to do is you have to go into query 2 to figure out what query 2 did prior to query 1 receiving the data. And many times that allows you to do things in order that must be done in order to make it actually work. So here we have sort descending here too. The one thing that looks a little bit funky here is that I got a huge list. I got 5,961 customers that we've had through the years, and they're all listed here. Let's go ahead and let's say that I just want the top 25 here. I only want to see the top 25 biggest customers. So if I right click here and go to properties, I get the property sheet for the whole query. Now, if I click on a field here or there, or I click on this table, I get different property sheets, and it says what the selection type is. Clicking here in the middle of the query by example grid allows you to see the property sheet. And that property sheet then, of course, allows you to come right down here to this top values item here. And right now, by default, it selects all values that meet the query criteria. Let's choose top 25 there. And what I want to do is go to the SQL view to see what it does there. Very simple command. It's in the select statement. Select the top 25. Okay. Let's go run that. And we get 25 records. And the bottom one here is 912,000. Now it's kind of a much more meaningful list that allows you to see who your best customers have been over the years. You could then slice and dice it based on the query that lets you see the years and have the year totals out there and just look at each year if you wanted as well. So there's a lot of different things you can do. And notice that I've been, as a best practice, I've been bouncing back between the query by example grid and the querying. I mean, there's things you can do like sending your queries to Oracle to do the processing, or to SQL Server. They're called pass-through queries. Those are coded specifically in the back end in SQL. And then you can tell it just by a simple command to send the query to SQL or Oracle. Various little tweaks that you can do. Generally, I use the query by example grid to get things started and to move things forward. And then I'll tweak a little bit in the SQL code when needed. But if you have other questions, go ahead and let me know in the comments, and I'll try to get to those. And in any case, come join me again later. Thanks. I want to thank you so much for coming and watching this video today. There's a lot of other great content that you can explore on this channel. In fact, a link to one of them is on the other side of the screen here. Also, please take a few moments to subscribe to the channel. It'll keep you informed of new videos as they're posted, and you can keep up with all the great content that's being put out here for everyone to enjoy. We'll hope to see you again later.